Today we're talking about 50 shades of gossip that Risa M. Tisa brings us on TikTok. All 50 videos, 7 hours of content, has over millions and millions of views.
Like, I cannot stop. I'm gonna call it and say, this is better than the Tinder swindler. Like, this woman, what she has been through, I want to give too much away, but just don't say I didn't warn you, because once you start, you're going to lose many hours of your life. But I'm fucking hooked.
So let's go straight into it. I'm gonna summarize the whole thing for you guys because 7 hours is a lot of watch time. But long story short, there's this lady by the name of Risa. Beautiful young lady, you know, she has her job right, she has her own place, you know, doing her thing, and she gets on dating apps and starts to look for a man. She basically matches with him on 2 different apps. His name is different on each app. That's already like a red flag. Talking, and she says we hit it off right away. They both like similar things. Everything was going good, so they set up a date. They go on a date, everything is great. That night, they literally stayed up to like 12 to 1 a.m. in his car talking. Like, they couldn't stop talking. And I think that is so beautiful. Like, when you really hit it off with somebody on the first date like that, you just know, you know? So anyway, weeks after they meet and they go on their first date, you know, COVID happens and they are supposed to go into quarantine. And so she said that she didn't want to spend the time alone. She didn't want to be isolated for a few weeks by herself. So she made the decision to invite him to stay with her. And to each their own, and she does talk about this. She says it's not something I would do. Like, I am a religious woman. I would never live with a man before marriage. But, you know, she said I didn't want to be isolated, and I guess she really liked the guy, so that's why they ended up moving. So he ended up moving to her place.
Moved at a rapid pace. Met in March. Moved in together pretty much end of March, beginning of April.
And so at the time, while they're living together, they're getting to know each other. He tells her about his past life. And in his past life, he has an ex-wife and he has 2 stepkids who he still has a relationship with. And he told her straight off the bat, I want a family, I want to get married. Like, I'm not just doing this for ha-ha hee-hee. And she told him the same thing. She said, listen, the reason I got on these apps is because I'm ready to start a family. I want to meet somebody serious, and like, I'm serious. So they're both sitting there and they're telling each other that they're both serious about this relationship and they don't have time to waste on just hookups. Next thing that happens, and what she talks about, before meeting her, he was looking to buy a house. So he says, I still want to buy a house. He showed her like a statement from a mortgage company pre-approving him for $700,000. The next thing they start talking about is like, does he buy a house for himself? So it would be like a townhouse, or is he now looking for a house for the both of them? Keep in mind, okay, if we're just being realistic here, they've known each other to this point for maybe like a month. And they're already buying a house. So like, to me, like, if I was her, I would feel kind of weird. That would be definitely a red flag for me, because we just met and you're already thinking about me and your plans to buy a house. Like, you're considering my opinion to buy a house, but we've known each other for 1 month. Kind of weird to me. She told him right away, she's like, listen, Legion, like, I don't have the funds. Like, I cannot afford a $700,000 mortgage. And he said, no, baby girl, like, I got you. They look at a house. She falls in love with it right away. A couple of days after they put in an offer, the realtor calls her and he says, hey girl, like, what's poppin'? Like, are you guys still interested in the house? She's like, what? Like, I thought we sent in an offer. And he's like, no, you didn't. And so she said, okay, well, call my man, because I don't know. The house is not even under my name, so like, call him. I don't know. Ask him. She's like, hey, Legion, like, what's going on? I thought we put in an offer. And he says, well, listen, I didn't want to tell you, but my friend is a realtor and I want him to get the commission, so I put in an offer through him. Long story short, they look for a house. They don't get the house. And this happens many times. And the reason this happens is because he puts in an offer for a house. The listing agency says, hey, we need proof of funds. Like, before we approve and before we accept your offer, we need proof of funds. And he says, no, you need to accept my offer before I show you my proof of funds. And so every time he would do the same thing. He would put in an offer knowing that it's going to get declined because he's not showing his proof of funds. And so each time they did this like 3 to 4 times, and they did not get the house every single time, you know?
I simply told him, I don't want to look at a house right now. I said, I think it's okay if we rent. Was embarrassed at the fact that he and I, because I felt like I was complicit in the fact that I'm going to look at houses with him. And I felt embarrassed at the fact that we wasted her time coming across as serious buyers.
He also did the same thing with the cars. She wanted a BMW with a cognac interior, and he would do the same thing. He would take her to the dealership, they would test drive, look at cars, and then boom, 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 never got the car. And this part is kind of a sensitive subject, but she gets pregnant, they end up getting married, the pregnancy doesn't go through. She ends up having a miscarriage, and so she needed to get induced to get the fetus out of her, and she made an appointment. She went to the hospital. He never ended up coming with her. He said, I was working and I'm busy. And so she ended up going through the surgery by herself without him by her side. She was in the hospital the whole time alone. And he was just nowhere to be found, right? So after they get married, he starts acting really weird. Like, really weird. He would call her and be like, hey, your ex came to the house. He started like you're cheating with your ex, throwing weird accusations her way. And she's like, listen, I'm not talking to my ex. There's no way that happened. So he's like, no, your ex was at the house. And so she went to the neighbor's house because they had a camera and they had a security camera facing their house, and they viewed the footage, and there was never an ex come by. So he had these like weird bickering fights, and to make it up, he would make her promises, like take her to Paris and buy her all these things, and just like keep her kind of like wheeled in with all the promises, like financial promises he made for her. Like it was all lies. They go to marriage counseling, and she catches him at one point messaging other women on Facebook. He actually cheats on her.
Was that here I am as a woman behaving, trying to do the right thing by him and this marriage. And you mean to tell me you out here offering your ding-a-ling to random chicks that you don't even know?
His ex told her, like, girl, get out of that because he's a pathological liar. Like, get out of that relationship. He's psycho. There was also a point in the relationship where he lied to Risa, telling her that his stepdaughter died and that he needs money, and that's how he got money out of Risa. So anyway, long story short, she gets out of the relationship with him. He starts stalking her. She also finds out that he had a twin brother that lives the life that he pictured for her that was never his life. He's a pathological liar that completely ruins her life and wheels her into this like psychotic trip, pretty much. That's the best way to describe it. And then he gets out of jail, and then he tries to contact her, and she said, if you ever contact me again, I will get a restraining order. And that's that. This is just this whole roller coaster, and the reason I want to talk about it is just because it is so wild to me. But yeah, that's the story, okay? So I hope that saves you time, and I hope you guys get an idea of what this content is all about. There has been people on TikTok who are accusing her of playing a victim card, because in reality why did she do all of that? Like, you knew straight from the jump that he's like a weirdo. Why did you stay in that relationship? Why, after multiple house offers, didn't a bell ring, you know? People are accusing her of playing the victim, and they're also accusing her of being with him for his money. And I feel like that is such a horrible accusation. Like, nowadays, like, guys, it's nothing new. Women love successful men. Women love that financial stability. When you would have done the same thing, like, come on, in today's economy, you'd have done the same thing. And she said he was an attractive guy. He had his shit together, or so she thought. And so any woman would have stayed with a man like that. I'm sure, like, throughout all those situations and throughout all those red flags, before she found out who he really was and that he was actually homeless, he didn't have a cent to his name, before any of that, she believed everything he has said. And he painted such a beautiful image of his life. TikTok is scary because they found him right away. They found his pictures right away. And he said that she's lying, basically. And I mean, like, obviously he would say that. Like, what else was he supposed to say? No, everything she said is true. But anyways, guys, that's the story of Risa and Tisa. I hope it clears the air for you guys. I summarized it as quick as I could. Let me know your thoughts on the whole situation down below. And yeah, I love you guys so much, and I'll see you in my next video.